Welcome to Fertilish, the podcast where we get real about fertility, infertility, and everything in between. I'm Laura.
And I'm Brandis. And whether you're knee-deep in treatments, just starting to ask questions, or somewhere in the ish of it all, you're in the right place.
Here we ditch the stigma, break down the science, and have candid conversations about the messy, emotional, and sometimes hilarious journey to growing a family and preserving your fertility.
So grab your coffee, your meds, or just your curiosity, and let's get into it. All right, we are back for episode number 14.
Yeah, super excited today. I think we are going to cover a topic that so many people want to know so much information about, and can be quite controversial sometimes. There's so many different schools of thought, and people love to give so much unsolicited opinions about this topic. But we're going to cover today how aging affects fertility.
Yeah, and actually, age is the number one thing that will, age of the person with the eggs is the number one thing that will predict success with fertility treatment. So, super important topic.
Yeah, I think that, like, we get so many questions about this so frequently, and there's so much erroneous information out there. I hear so frequently, like, well, my sister, had a child unexpectedly at 45, or, my mom had me at 43, or, whatever the case may be. And so they, sometimes feel like that they are not going to have any issues, and that when they do a cycle of IVF, that they should have 573 embryos, and they'll all be great quality, and they'll all be healthy, and the first transfer will work, and everything will be wonderful, and that very well could be the case. But, I think that there's a lot of just, like, misunderstanding about, like, how age can affect egg quality and quantity.
Oh, yeah. And, as we get older, I always tell patients there are two challenges. One is, going to be getting eggs, and two, the quality of those eggs. And so we do check something called AMH, which is your anti-Mullerian hormone. And Natalie Crawford always uses this analogy, and I love it, so I always use it as well. But think about having a vault in your ovary, and that houses all the eggs you'll ever have. And we have these before we're born. And throughout our lives, we will lose these eggs, and once we're out, we're in menopause. It doesn't matter. So you'll lose eggs monthly, whether you've hit puberty, whether you're on birth control, whether you're pregnant, you're losing eggs every month.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, like, with birth control. Like, I think that, like, there's a misconception out there that, like, that kind of pauses you.
Yeah.
And so since you were on birth control for many years, that you should be able to, like, delay menopause for a longer period of time, thus being able to, achieve a pregnancy more, easily, in your 40s or early 50s, because you were on birth control for a period of time, and that's just not the case.
Yeah, well, and even, like, fascinating is even before puberty, even before you start periods, you're losing eggs.
Right.
Because, your brain is not sending down that FSH signal yet, and so, there's a while before the brain and the HPO axis starts communicating. And so it doesn't mean you're not ovulating, but you're still losing those eggs. And I think that's crazy. And a lot of people, don't know that. Or, like you said, I've been on birth control, I haven't been ovulating, and so I should be fine. And that's not the case. But so this fall, the more eggs that you have in it, the more eggs it will release every month. And then if the fewer eggs you have in it, the fewer it'll release every month. And we are limited with IVF to the amount of eggs that you're releasing. So if you have fewer, we have access to fewer because we have no way to get into that vault. So that's the first kind of point. Which, again, AMH doesn't predict natural fertility, because whether you have, 900 eggs left or 500 eggs left, you're still going to ovulate one. The other thing is the quality of eggs, and crazy again is that our eggs have been with us since before we were born. And so these eggs are held in a state of cell division that makes them super vulnerable to kind of break down. So the little meiotic spindles that hold the eggs apart are just proteins, and they absorb the wear and tear of your life. And so those proteins can start to break down. And so when that DNA splits, it'll start to split abnormally. So again, getting eggs and then the DNA. Those are the kind of the two biggest things. And that's why most clinics, some of them will cut off at 42. I know some that cut off at 45. And then at that point, they're making you choose donor egg.
Yeah.
And again, at CNY, no matter what age, we educate you, but we don't have any cutoffs, which I think is cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Which I think is really, it's wonderful because although we do know that age obviously very much affects fertility, and as you said, is the number one predictor of success, this 40-year-old and this 40-year-old could look very different. And so it's hard to have this hard line of well, when you get to this, this age that your fertility cuts off. And I read something a couple of days ago that I just love, and it's going to be my new little saying now. And it says, it was that fertility is not a switch, it's a dimmer. And so, maybe how fast that dimmer is turned is different from patient to patient.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of different variables that go into that. And so having that hard line of at this point, on your 42nd birthday, you don't have the option of using your own eggs any longer, is really wild to me. And so, at CNY, we do not have an age restriction. We do, if our providers are hey, we recommend you, for best chances of success, we do recommend that, you consider, moving on to donor eggs. If that patient says, well, I'd like to trial a cycle or two of my own eggs first, you absolutely, have the option to do that. And, we have patients that have extremely low AMH levels that have healthy, live, bouncing baby. And, so it can still be done, absolutely. But those tools are able to, be utilized to be able to say hey, this is what we, as best we can, this is what we, recommend for you. And we, these are the outcomes that can be somewhat predicted from that, and kind of give you your chances so that way you can make the best chance or the best, decisions for with those chances.
Yeah. And, the eggs that are there, like I said, it is, once that those proteins start to break down, that's where, it may take multiple cycles to get a normal. So, for example, an egg will have 46XX, and when that DNA splits, half will go into the polar body, which basically goes into the trash, and then half will be into the egg, or will go into the egg, the part that gets fertilized. And so, it's important to know that it may not take one cycle, but it may take 2, 3, 4 based on your age and the amount of children you want. So important to bring that up to your provider and say, hey, what do you estimate I'm going to need, or how many cycles to get to my goal, is one thing. And then, what protocol is super important, especially in those with a diminished ovarian reserve. Also important to know AMH can go up or down by 30% each month. So if it drops, some people freak out, or they say, I ate vegan for a week or carnivore or whatever, and it went up, that's normal. It can fluctuate.
Yeah, I know. I recently texted you, and my AMH had increased quite drastically, and I was like, what, is this right? I certainly wasn't eating healthier. I was still eating crap.
You're like, the Alani's. The Alani news increased my egg count.
Yeah. TikTok's trying to make me believe everybody's ending up at the hospital that drinks Alani new, but for me, it increased my age.
That's so funny. See?
So, it definitely can fluctuate. And I did see, an increased number of follicles with this cycle, having that additional or that higher AMH. And so I kind of saw like a direct result of increased follicles this cycle with that increased AMH. So, I think that it's important to know, like, from cycle to cycle, like, your cycles can look different. So if you, didn't have a cycle that, like, was what you were hoping, it's very possible that it could look different the next time around.
Yeah, 1 month you can release 7 eggs, the next month could be 12, the next month could be 5, the next month could be 13. So that can kind of fluctuate, and that's why we don't check AMH month to month. It's usually yearly. And something to know, that while birth control does not affect your chances to conceive or your fertility, if you've been on it a long time and you check your AMH and it comes back it comes back low, birth control can actually temporarily decrease your AMH. If you come off of it, it should go back to normal. And so usually if somebody comes back super low and they've been on birth control for years, I'll take them off for about 3 months depending on the situation, and we'll retest it. And some of the time it comes back within the normal parameter. It's just a temporary decrease because you haven't been exposed to that FSH.
Yeah. And I guess I'm assuming that, like, because of the different types of birth control, like, some probably affect it more than other, depending on, like, the hormonal makeup of the birth control.
Yeah, especially if you're not taking the placebo pills and you're taking it to not get a period. Sometimes you can get a thin lining or different things, but all of those things will go back to normal in a few months after you stop.
Okay.
And then so important to know there. But that's why, with age, we tell you if you're under the age of 35 and you've been trying for 12 months, come see us. If you're over the age of 35 and you've been trying for 6 months, come see us. And then if you're 40 and you're going to try and conceive, just come see us. We don't even have a wait for that because we want to make sure that we're checking to make sure a fallopian tube at least is open. We're checking hormones. We want to make sure sperm is what it should be. And so if there is anything wrong, we're not waiting for treatment.
Yeah, absolutely.
So eggs aren't even the only part of the puzzle. A lot of people don't talk about it, but males, sperm ages too.
Yeah. I think that, like, women, that we get the short end of the stick, and all the pressure is on us, and that we're the only ones that have a biological clock. But that's not true. Yeah.
So with males, actually sperm that is coming from someone that is between the ages of like 45 to 50, that can have increased chromosomal abnormalities, an increase in DNA fragmentation, birth defects, genetic mutations, and even things like a higher presence of schizophrenia and autism. And I think that's crazy because when you talk about fertility, so many people look at the woman like, ooh, your clock is ticking.
Yep.
Or, you better have kids. You can't have them forever. And they look at males as if they can have kids forever. And, the quality of sperm does go down.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I have recently seen several, like, actors or, celebrities that are, like, in their 70s or 80s that are having children with much younger women. I think that like, obviously perpetuate the like, news articles around it or social media posts obviously perpetuates that stereotype that, like, there's, men are fertile to the end. But, obviously there, like you said, like, there is increased risk of, like, birth defects, different types of abnormalities to the sperm, which can also cause miscarriages. And so it definitely does play a factor in the overall, like, fertility picture.
Oh, yeah. And, we talk about freezing eggs a lot and getting your fertility tested, like checking your ovarian reserve even when you're 20, because you never know if you have, premature ovarian failure or things like that. But we don't talk to males about it enough, about, hey, this can decrease too. and it can change every 3 months. So
Right.
if you have a lifestyle, which is super important, I usually tell people anything that's good for your regular health is typically good for fertility health. That's something that is fairly easy for them to get checked too.
Yeah.
I think it's fairly cheap, and it's obviously kind of an easy process to get. And so, if that's something they're worried about, they can always come in and get that checked as well.
Absolutely. And you don't even have to come in. We have
Yeah.
at home semen analysis kits. So it's like this really cool kit that like everything has a place. It's put together very well. That is shipped very discreetly to your home. And there is a collection cup. There's very explicit instructions. And then you introduce this medium within 30 minutes to the collection cup. You put it back in. There's already a prepaid label in it. You put the label on the box. Nobody even has to know what it is. Drop it off. And you get your results within a few days. So it's like super easy, and you can do it from literally anywhere. So, working on the road, being deployed in the military.
Yeah.
None of those are ever excuses with this option. So we're really excited to be able to like offer that to patients, just, and your female partner, if you don't have a partner, like no one else has to be a patient. Like you can specifically request this test and then get your results, very expeditiously, with us, and it's a super easy link to follow, and you just fill out a form and they mail the kit right out to you. And it's very cost effective as well.
Well, and you're not having, and this is a big deal to the people that come in sometimes right here at mentioned, we don't care because we're a fertility clinic
Right.
and we see it every day. But, you're not having to come in and give the sample here, which, again, we don't care. We're not even paying attention, really. But so many people are like, I don't want to go into a clinic and have to give a sample. And so you're getting to do it from the privacy of wherever you're at, which was nice and sometimes can be a barrier for people.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so I think the kits are super helpful when it comes to that, for sure.
No, absolutely, yeah. I mean, yeah, like I've been multiple times with my husband to do a semen analysis because he always wants me to go with him, and then I walk out and I'm just like, oh, this is awkward. Especially when you work here.
That's so funny.
Yeah, but like it's a part of it. And then one day he was like, he heard me talking about these kits and like how we had and he was like, why didn't we ever do that? And I was like, because like that's not an option for you. Like I have to do it every people. You can at least go to the clinic and do it. He was like, what is wrong with you? He's
like, wait, I just listened to your podcast, actually.
Yeah, like, why is this an option for everyone else but not for me? I was like, look, it's the least you can do, okay? Like,
you know what's so funny is I say this all the time, but I was doing, the nurses had called me downstairs for a saline sonogram, and they were, like, having a hard time, and so I go down there, and I'm like trying to get the catheter in, and we're using a tenaculum, and it's not comfortable, and this, we have pressure, and the patient felt their bladder, and I was like, sorry, a little bit of pressure, I'm trying to talk her through it. And her husband is sitting there, and she goes, wow, I go through all of this, and he just gets an orgasm out of it. And it's like, you know what, that is kind of funny, because they have the better end of the stick on a lot of things, including it. And it was just like fun, and everyone in the room started laughing, and it was just like funny. But we always love senses of humor.
It does feel like that sometimes as the female. Like, oh, poor you.
I know. And the fertility lasts longer.
You did have to put up with me while I was on hormones. So I'll give you that for sure.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the thing with the male age. But, again, we're back to the number one predictor is female age.
Yeah.
And so even, not only do your chances with IVF get slimmer because, again, same things. There's less eggs, which isn't really as big of a deal in natural fertility, because you're still ovulating an egg, but it is harder to get a chromosomally normal egg, which we kind of talked about. So fecundability, or your chances of getting pregnant actually decrease with age for women who have never conceived. So if you are attempting to conceive for the first time at age 35, your chance of pregnancy per cycle is about 12%. At 38, it's 5%. Per cycle. At 40, it's 3% per cycle, and it's even lower at 40 and above. But once you have a child, these numbers really aren't as scary. It's a 20% chance of pregnancy per month at age 33, 15% at age 35, 13% at age 13% at age 39, and 8% at age 40. And this is because people who have never conceived may have underlying fertility issues that we don't know about. But interestingly enough, so in people 40 to 41 that have never been pregnant have a cumulative chance of pregnancy of 25% by the end of 12 months. And 40 to 41, if you have a history of a prior pregnancy, you have a 56% chance of pregnancy by the end of 12 months. So it does get higher cumulatively, especially if you've had children before.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note, like, the first numbers that, and I think the numbers that we, like, hear pretty frequently are, like, in any given month. And so I'm glad that you pointed that out, like, month over month versus, like, or in a given month versus cumulative. Because sometimes it does feel like, what? Like, you know, when you hear the numbers, like, for in any given month. But if you think about the like chance of pregnancy for like a 20-year-old in any given month, it still seems very low. And you know, because you do have, you know, in 1 month you do have a much smaller chance of pregnancy with no fertility issues, being in like the prime of you know, your 20s, than people probably recognize.
Oh, yeah. And I just turned 30. Well, I say just, it was in March. And, you know, in looking through these studies, when it says at 35, which is not far off for me for, I guess, 5 years, it's like, wow, 12% per cycle if you've never had a kid. Like, that's wild. And that seems like such a low probability. And so I just feel like your whole life, when we've talked about this, you're told if you have sex, you're going to get pregnant, birth control fails, you know, all these things, and make it seem like you have sex once and you're going to have babies.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily the case.
Well, and sometimes whenever you see other people and like how easy it, like, especially when you're going through fertility treatment or you're trying to conceive, and you see like how easy it seemed for someone else to conceive, and you see all these people who like didn't even want children that like are how easily that they're having children. It seems like, well, my God, anybody else but me can do it. Like,
I know. Or they're like, oh my gosh, I had an IUD in, or I was on birth control, and it's like, oh. And it's crazy, I think, even working in this field, because it's like, you see, okay, it's really inefficient. You know, you could only get pregnant 6 days out of the month, 5 days leading up to and the day of ovulation. You know, sperm count has to be right. You have to have 120 plus or minus 3 hours of progesterone in the uterus. Like, so many things have to be correct that it's almost like amazing to me that anybody gets pregnant on their own.
No, absolutely. Yeah. If you think about, and then like all the things that have to align for like after that, like throughout the pregnancy, and to have a healthy pregnancy and then, you know, then a healthy baby, it truly is a miracle.
Oh, yeah. And, you know, sometimes when I'm sitting upstairs with the nurses and we're reviewing labs that come back either for stims or for transfers, we're always like, people do this on their own for free? Like, that's crazy, because we're constantly having to, like, adjust meds.
Yeah.
Change meds, add things in, and it's like, yeah, again, just wild that it's able to happen on its own.
Yeah, it really is a miracle. So it's, yeah, if you truly like pick apart like and break down all of the things that have to align for this one, you know, thing to happen, it's crazy.
You know, I think we talked a little bit about, I guess, egg quantity going down, egg quality going down as you age. Sometimes people may choose to expedite the process and do IVF. So if you're someone who, even if you're under 35 and have a lower or a diminished ovarian reserve, you may choose to jump to IVF right off the bat, so that way you can egg bank, which I'm a huge fan of. So if your AMH comes back super low and you only want one kid, then you may say, oh, we'll try IUI or timed intercourse at home. But if you're somebody that wants multiple children, then we may say, well, let's embryo bank now, because the eggs that you have, even though, are very few, may not be there in the future.
Yeah.
And so there are different ways to kind of handle age, either with PGT testing or embryo banking, or if you're younger and just have a diminished ovarian reserve. So this is why I think it's so important that no matter what your age, that you tell your provider, even though the goal is to get pregnant now, how many children you're ultimately wanting. Because if you want one, I may say, well, we can try IUI. But if you tell me you want 3, then we may need to do IVF to bank. And so that's super important to, again, tell your provider, even if they don't ask you.
Yeah.
Because we want to look at the big picture, not just a get pregnant now.
Yeah, I think that understanding a patient's goals are not for the immediate future, but for a prolonged future. Like, what are your your family planning goals, just in general, so that way that as providers, you guys can say hey, I know that right now the goal is just to get pregnant, but I want to be able to help you to achieve further goals.
Yeah.
And so I think that you're exactly right. To be able to say hey, it's better to obviously get these now and get these eggs now than if let's say you achieve a pregnancy after you've done one egg retrieval cycle. Well, you're looking at it probably at least a year later, in order to be able to do another egg retrieval. And then you've got to, if you don't have any more embryos, you've got to start that process all over again.
Yeah.
And then wait for, if you're going to do PGT, then wait for PGT testing, and then wait for the next cycle at least to do, frozen embryo transfer, then have another HSG and SHG in there somewhere because it's been a year and you've had a pregnancy. And so obviously there's so many different steps in there that the easier that you can make it on yourself, the faster you'll be able to achieve your goals.
Yeah. And, I think that is frustrating too sometimes, and kind of disheartening is when people either come from another clinic or they didn't have that conversation with their provider of their goals. It was just kind of a get pregnant now plan, and they had a baby. So, they had a diminished ovarian reserve off the bat.
Yeah.
And then they were pregnant for 9 months. Then they decided to breastfeed for a while, and then they had to wait a year or however long their clinic made them wait. And now they're back, and that AMH is almost non-existent now. FSH, follicle stimulating hormone, which is what your brain sends down to tell your eggs to grow, is sky high because your brain's really trying to get an egg to grow and nothing's happening. And they're wanting to come back for another child. And it's this would have been maybe a lot easier if you banked embryos than have to come back, because I think, cool thing is uterus doesn't age. So we can usually get a thick enough lining, even if periods have stopped, to get an embryo to implant. But eggs really are something we cannot get back.
Yeah.
As far as, the other option to trying to conceive, and I think here, if you're 50 or older, we do require maternal fetal medicine or an OBGYN clearance.
Okay.
But a lot of people will use donor egg right off the bat because either their periods have stopped, and we would still let you try with the education, but if periods have stopped, especially for a full year, that's considered menopause. FSH level over 40, that's telling me your brain's really trying really hard to get an egg to grow, nothing's happening, and we use FSH to grow an egg, then you're kind of already at high levels. An AMH of less than 0.03 is a true 0. And so there are certain circumstances where we may say, hey, your quickest, fastest, most successful rate or way to pregnancy is going to be with donor egg. We do have people that say, hey, don't even mention this to me, and we won't. Ethically, I will always tell you the statistics, but, if you say, hey, my AMH is low, but I am still having periods or they're infrequent, and I realize I may have to do 10 cycles to get a normal, but I'm willing to do it and it's worth it to me, then I think when you're equipped with that knowledge and you choose to move forward, then that's obviously fine, and it's your decision.
And we do have some patients who are like kind of on the fence, like, I'm open to donor eggs, but I'd really like to try with my own. So they do kind of like a combination of the two. And so, they may do an egg retrieval of their own eggs or two and then add on donor eggs as well. And, that's an option as well. If you're not, you're kind of like, hey, like, I understand these numbers. I understand that, that there are lower chances of success with, these particular, hormone values. But I'd really still like to try, but I also like understand the end goal of like, being able to bring home a baby, and I understand that this will give, potentially give me a higher, success rate, but like I can kind of combine all the things. And so we do have lots of patients that do that as well. And it kind of, I think probably feels like a happy medium, like I haven't completely given up on this, but I'm not, completely against this. So that's an option as well that I think that, is worth mentioning.
Well, and I love that you brought that up because we do have donor egg add-on, and a lot of people don't know that you can do that. So you still get to try with your own eggs, and we have donor eggs just in case. And a lot of the time, sometimes people will say, well, it's not my baby because it's not my genetics, or it's not my, it's not my egg. And there is a cool field kind of now called epigenetics, and it does say, even though you're not the one coming up with the map, your body is what kind of chooses how those genes are expressed. And so, whether your child is creative or more mathematical or right-handed or left-handed, like these are things that, your body can kind of choose how they're expressed. So it's kind of cool, which switches are flipped on and off. So something to talk to your provider about, because it still is such a cool option that you still have the opportunity to kind of bond and grow with that child, even though it's not your egg.
And be biologically tied to them. Because, biologically you carried this, you grew this baby, you carried this baby, you gave birth to this baby. And so you're still biologically tied.
Yeah, you still get to
child.
Breastfeed if you want to.
And like nothing will ever make you not that child's mother.
Oh, yeah, 100%. And I think it's so cool. I always tell people if something happened or my eggs didn't work, or it's just such a cool option because, you can still be pregnant. You still get to go through pregnancy. And I just think it's just so cool that we're able to do that.
Yeah, I mean, once upon a time, like we have had a conversation about like, if that was something that we were like considering, and like at what point did it, when would be the point to say like, okay, like let's consider that. And I had kind of gotten to the point, I just like kind of got down at one point and talked to Dr. Pakrashi and, like, do you feel like that I should just move on? And she was like, I don't think we're there yet, but like I appreciate the openness to it. And when my husband and I were talking about it, he was like, okay, but like if we do, we just have to find a redhead donor. And I was like, okay.
Yeah,
I don't know how many redhead donors we have. No, we do have them because I've looked, but
I mean, kind of cool. Like you're right. You can look through, you can see what they look like. I think some banks or ours, I don't know, but they give you like level of education, how old they are, what they do. And that's cool because you still know like
fertility history, so how many children that they had, how many, so there's a lot of different information, and for anyone interested in, like we do have our own in-house egg donor bank, which I think is absolutely amazing. So once you have a consultation with us, you get access to a patient portal. And so like at any time, you can always log into the patient portal on your phone, on your computer, on your iPad, whatever's most convenient for you. And you can like look at messages from our staff. You can look at like documents, test results. There's so much information in there. But there's also within that patient portal, there's like the donor portal. So once you're like officially like our patient, you can always go into your patient portal, click on that donor portal, and look at all of our like active donors currently. And like you said, like see, education history, like their fertility history, what color eyes they have, what color hair they have, their ethnicity, and a lot of different information about them, so that way, like, you can pick the things that are most important to you.
Yeah.
So if it's a matter of like religion, or if it's a matter of like ethnicity, or you really want a donor that has brown eyes, or whatever it is, that you can pick the things that most align with you. And apparently at our house it's red hair, so.
Well, and I think it's important to keep in mind too that I kind of explained, once you're out of eggs, you're out. And that's what we consider menopause. And I get so many patients, and this is because of our lack of, I feel like, reproductive health care education, especially with women, that we can't make more eggs. Our technology is not there yet. I know at ASRM and different places they're talking about where they take skin cells, stem cells, and turn them into eggs. Mm-hmm. Obviously, that's way far down the line, way far away. But we can't make more at this time. And so, sometimes people will say, how do I increase my AMH? How can I? And it's like, there's no cure or remedy or medication that I'm going to offer you that's going to increase your AMH more than that 30%. I can maybe get more eggs in the next cycle with maybe ovarian PRP for some recruitment, but I'm not ever going to make more eggs. And so that's kind of a key point. Or, sometimes people will say, again, I did this supplement and now my AMH is this. It was just because you had that fluctuation. Mm-hmm. That's normal. And I see this on Instagram a lot. So many people call themselves coaches, mm-hmm. and they will sell supplements because this is such a vulnerable population of, hey, we can,
where we will buy anything.
Yeah,
yes,
you never run out of eggs, or you can make more, or you'll even see, I've seen people that have used donor egg that post that they got pregnant on their own and had babies, and it's just so misleading. So just know that stuff's out there. Most of it's scammy. And
even
people
predatory.
Don't tell the truth.
Like I would, call some of it even downright predatory. I was actually, my last cycle, I was joking with Dr. Pakrashi and Lanessa at our Norfolk clinic about what a fool I was. Because I was like showing them this, like, I won't say what it is, but it was this fertility, like when you're going through stems, it was something like to help you through stems.
Okay.
Not a supplement, but like little tools that you could use or whatever. And so it was like a kit that you could buy, and it had multiple different things in it. And we were just like looking at how like basic and simple it was, and we were like, why didn't we think of something that, and we could like sell it for like a third of the cost and probably still make a profit, because it was so outrageously priced, but because it was pink and it had, this particular brand on it or whatever, whatever the case may be, that, we were buying it. And one of the things was Band-Aids that came in there. And they were cute.
They're like pineapples.
But if you can like buy them on their own, but they're like a fortune. Dr. Pakrashi was like, "You paid what for those Band-Aids?"
That'd be me.
And I was like,
but they're cute.
I was a sucker.
The packaging was cute. And now I have a little temporary tattoo of a pineapple from this Band-Aid. Like, I do. I buy all of that.
She was like, "Why didn't you just get the welly ones?" And I was like, "Well, I actually usually do." I love the welly ones. The only thing about the welly ones is the adhesive is so good that if you put them on like sensitive skin, like your stomach or your butt, like for like a progesterone injection, like it you have to scrub the adhesive off like it leaves.
That's so funny. Well, they even have like and I've seen this on TikTok. This is how I know. Like Etsy witches. that will tell you about your fertility and will like, have you seen that?
Yes.
And they'll get you pregnant.
Yes.
Or something like that.
Yeah, well, they're like right there on TikTok, like that you can like subscribe to like a psychic and they'll tell you like what month you're going to conceive, what the sex of your baby is going to be. And
one girl, and this isn't even about fertility, but she was like, I told her my boyfriend or ex-boyfriend, I don't know, and I were no contact, and the next day he contacted me. And it's like, and people were saying, yeah, there's fertility ones that do this, and it's like, okay, I can look at that and be like, okay, but if you're desperate enough, those things might start to become appealing.
But also on TikTok, like depending on how much you post, they could tell a lot about you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, 100%. I know. I'm
or like your likes or your reposts. Like I could probably tell more about a lot of people. Like I can tell you your future.
I know. I'm like, you paid them more than you like paid me. I could look at your hormones and give you a better like predictor. So yeah, but there's just so much stuff out there.
Oh, absolutely. Predatory. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, like, specifically vulnerable are women who, you know, are nearing, like, that 40 mark or are already in their 40s. And so because there's, like, this, like, so much pressure about, like, the age thing, that, you know, and then all the comments about, like, well, when are you going to have a baby? Or when are you going to have another baby? Or... you're getting too old to have a baby, or you're trying to do what? Like, you're too old for that. You know, whatever. Like, all the super inappropriate, unsolicited, like, mind your business comments that nobody asked you for.
Yeah.
That just, like, make matters so much worse. That, you know, those things don't help. And so I think that, like, that population is even more particularly vulnerable to, like, buying things that, like, we don't need.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, find a fertility buddy and be like, am I having a moment? Do I really need to buy this?
Well, and I get it at 30, and it's like, wow, but I am 30. And like the thing about it is like, I mean, I've had even patients ask, like, oh, do you have kids? Or some people say, oh, well, you know, you're 30, you better hurry. And it's like, okay, well, when I have eggs frozen, so I hope that gives me some, like, but it's like, you don't think I'm literally working a fertility clinic. Like, I'm living in it. I'm in a constant state of stress. But, like, you people don't pick their timelines, and it's hard, and you don't know what's going to happen. Life isn't always on a perfect path, but I think the best tool we have, you know, is different things with IVF, whether it be donor egg freezing.
Absolutely.
So age is a good predictor, but there are other ways, you know, to achieve pregnancy for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, we've come so long, you know, we've come so far in such a short amount of time, that we, you know, now have, like you said, like we have so many more tools now to be able to help people like further, and, you know, with CNY, with us not having age restrictions, we're able to help so many people that, like, normally would have, you know, potentially been told absolutely not, or no, or thought that they didn't have an option, and they've been given an opportunity and have had success. And so, you know, these tools are such a blessing to so many people and have impacted so many people's lives.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. And I hope this episode has been really helpful in regards to, you know, why it gets harder to conceive as we get older. I don't know if you have anything you want to add.
Yeah, I think that, like, I think that the you know, as a patient that, like, experienced second infertility, and then, like, you know, in my late 30s, and now I'm, you know, in my 40s, I think that, like, the main thing is that, like, just focus on your journey, and focus on that with your provider, whomever that is that you choose to trust. And I'm, like, the queen of comparison, so I, like, don't have any room to talk, but I think that, like, it's so easy to compare ourselves to other people, good, bad, or indifferent, but your journey may look, you know, very different than theirs. And so not to get discouraged based on someone else's either success or them not having success. That, I think that it's important to just have like real conversations about expectations for your journey with your provider, and then have a support system that's like truly supportive, and anything else to just like try to tune it out, because it's really easy to just like kind of get swept up in the water of the whole like outside world.
Yeah.
And I'm very guilty, like I definitely like kind of get beside myself, but I'm really lucky to have, some really great people that are close to me that understand the journey, and, you've talked me off the ledge many times. And so, and I work in fertility, and so like I think that it's like you're human. If you if you get discouraged, like don't get down on yourself, because it's very easy to do. But we're here to support you, and whatever it is that you need from us, please just let us know. Whether that's through your patient portal, through email, DMing us through Instagram, reaching out to us.
Jot form.
Yeah. Reaching out to us, CNY Fertility /Fertilish, anything that we can do to help you at any stage of the journey. Like that's what we want to do.
Yeah. I subscribe, give us ratings, tell us what you think. We love feedback, and we will see you guys next week.
Yeah, absolutely. Bye-bye.
Bye.